I thought I knew every moment of my life, until a stranger walked up to me, said my mother's name, and told me something she never had the chance to say. Asterisk, I thought I knew every moment of my life, until a stranger walked up to me on a quiet Thursday morning, said my mother's name, her full name, including the middle one she tried to hide, and told me something she never had the chance to say. And in that instant everything inside me froze, because no one alive should have known that name except family. And the way he spoke, it's soft, careful, like he was handling something fragile, made my heart stumble in my chest. I just stared at him, a man in his late 50s, with rain in his hair and a look in his eyes that wasn't desperation but certainty, the kind that comes from living with a truth too heavy to carry alone. And before I could ask who he was, he whispered, "Robin, she wanted you to know the truth, but she ran out of time." And the way he said it cracked something old and buried inside me, something I had spent decades avoiding. He asked if we could sit somewhere quiet, and though every rational part of me told me to walk away, there was something in his voice, an echo of familiarity I couldn't explain, that made me nod. We sat on a bench near the corner cafe, the one my mom used to take me to when I was a kid, and he looked around like he was making sure the world wasn't listening, then reached into his coat and pulled out a small, sealed envelope, worn at the edges, the kind that looked like it had been carried for years. "She wrote this for you," he said, placing it gently in my hands. "But she never had the chance to give it to you. She asked me to keep it safe until the moment you were ready." My throat tightened. The envelope was old, too old to be anything recent, and on the front was my name in her handwriting, the gentle curved letters I hadn't seen since I was a boy. For a moment the whole world tilted, memories ripping through me, her laughter, her tired eyes, her voice calling me Robbie when she thought I was asleep, her holding my hand at the hospital the night before her last surgery, telling me not to worry even as she winced from the pain. My fingers trembled as I held the envelope, afraid to open it, afraid not to. "Who are you?" I finally asked. He looked down at his hands. "Someone who owed your mother a debt," he said quietly, "and someone who failed her once." His words hung heavy between us, and before I could question him further, he added, "I promised her I would deliver this when the time was right. And today is that day." I didn't open the letter, not yet, because the weight of it felt sacred, like opening it would change something I couldn't undo. So I tucked it into my jacket and turned back to him. "Why now?" I asked, "after all these years." He looked at me, and something like sorrow flickered in his eyes. "Because you're about to make the same mistake she did," he whispered. "She wanted you to know why it destroyed her." A chill crawled up my spine. "What mistake?" I asked, but he shook his head, as if the answer wasn't for him to give. "She wanted you to hear it from her," he said. It wasn't my place to explain. He stood up suddenly, like something had shifted in the air, and I realized he was trembling, not from cold, but from something deeper, a fear he wouldn't name. "Robin, there is something you've carried your whole life without knowing it," he said. "A moment she tried to protect you from, but the truth has a way of returning, even when we bury it." I grabbed his arm. "Tell me what this is about," I demanded. He hesitated, then whispered, "You were there that night, Robin. You saw what happened. But your mind did what hers couldn't. Your mind survived by forgetting." The words hit me like a punch to the chest, and inside me something flinched, like a memory trying to surface. A flash of headlights, rain on asphalt, a scream maybe hers. Maybe mine, then darkness swallowing everything. My breath caught. "What night?" I asked, but he stepped back, shaking his head. "Open the letter," he said. "She'll tell you." And then he turned and walked away with a limp I hadn't noticed before. One hand pressed to his side like he was holding himself together. I watched him disappear around the corner, and something inside me whispered that this wasn't the last time I would see him. I sat on that bench for a long time, holding the envelope like a fragile universe, too afraid to open it but too shaken to let it go. Finally, when the sky began to darken and the street lamps flickered on, I tore it open with trembling fingers. Inside was a single page, folded neatly. My mother's handwriting filled the paper. I felt my throat close as I read the first line, "My sweet boy. I'm sorry you had to forget." My entire body went numb. I kept reading, every word hitting like a blow. She wrote about a night I had no memory of, a night she and I had been driving home from visiting my aunt. The rain heavy enough to blur the world into streaks of silver. She wrote about a man standing in the middle of the road, waving frantically for help, about how she pulled over despite her fear, about how he begged her to take him somewhere safe, somewhere they couldn't find him, and how she agreed because he was bleeding and terrified. But then she wrote, "I didn't know they were following him, Robin. I didn't know what danger I brought you into." My chest tightened. I read faster. She described headlights appearing behind us, too close, too fast, and the sudden crash that spun the car off the road. She wrote about shielding me with her body as glass shattered around us, about the man in the road shouting for us to run, about her dragging me out of the car despite her injured leg. But then the letter changed, tone gentler, sadder. "You don't remember any of this," she wrote, "because your mind protected you. But mine never forgot. And the guilt became heavier than I could carry. I stopped breathing." She wrote about nightmares, about waking up crying, about watching me grow and wondering if one day the memory would return and break me. "I wanted to tell you," she wrote, "but every time I tried, the words died in my throat. So I asked someone I trusted to tell you when the time was right." My hands shook. The last line blurred as tears welled in my eyes. "Forgive me, my sweet boy. I only wanted you to live in the light." I sat there, letter in hand, feeling the world tilt beneath me. The memory wouldn't come not fully, but something inside me cracked open. A pressure I hadn't known was there, releasing slowly, painfully. And then, as I folded the letter back into the envelope, I felt someone sit beside me on the bench. I turned. It wasn't the stranger. It was a woman I had never seen before, yet somehow the sight of her made my breath catch. She looked at me with eyes that held the weight of recognition and said, barely above a whisper, "You don't remember me, do you?" And in that moment, the air around us shifted, like the world itself was bracing for what was about to surface. When Elise sat beside me on that bench and whispered her name, the world around us seemed to fold inward, as if the air itself recognized something that my conscious mind couldn't yet grasp. And even though I stared at her face, trying to place her among the scattered memories of my childhood, nothing aligned clearly enough to form a complete picture. Yet something deep within me reacted not with confusion, but with an aching sense of familiarity, like remembering a dream long after waking. She held my gaze for a moment that felt heavier than time itself, before gently placing the silver crescent moon pendant into my hand, the tiny initials R and E glinting under the dimming street lamp. And the instant my fingers closed around the cool metal, a shock pulsed up my arm and spread through my chest, a sensation so sudden and intimate that I gasped, because it felt not like electricity, but recognition like touching something that once belonged to me. Not in a material sense, but in a way that connected to who I used to be. Elise watched me with trembling hands folded in her lap, the tension in her shoulders revealing she feared what I might remember. When I asked where she got the pendant, her voice cracked as she whispered, "You gave it to me." On the night, everything changed, and I felt the first sharp sting behind my eyes. A flash of light cutting through the fog of forgotten years, revealing fragments I didn't yet understand. Rain hitting the windshield, the echo of laughter. A promise whispered under our breaths. We don't forget each other, not in any life. The memory vanished as quickly as it came, leaving my heart pounding. She told me my mother had known her, that my mother had saved her, and when she said that, something inside me twisted painfully. Saved you from what? I asked, my voice barely steady, and Elise took a long breath like she was preparing to lift a weight she had carried far too long. From the people who were chasing my father, she said softly. From the ones who wanted something he refused to give them, and from the truth that should have destroyed both of us. A chill climbed up my spine as she described the night of the crash, the night my mother wrote about in her letter. But Elise's version carried details my mother never mentioned, details that shifted the entire meaning of the event. Your mother didn't just pull over because she was kind, Elise said. She stopped because she recognized something in me. She saw fear, and she saw a chance to protect you. I frowned, confused. Protect me from what? She swallowed hard. From what I meant to your life. Her words stunned me. Elise explained that her father had been involved with a group researching unapproved neurological experiments techniques intended to study the brain's ability to rewrite memories, suppress trauma, and alter emotional attachments. They weren't sanctioned by any ethical board. They operated in the shadows, manipulating desperate people with promises of erasing pain. Her father had tried to escape when he realized what they intended to do to her. How? They wanted to use her as a test subject because of a rare condition she had that made her memories unusually malleable. He knew they were coming for us, she said. That's why he ran into the road that night. He was begging for help, and my mother, bless her heart, had stopped because she couldn't leave anyone in danger. Elise's father begged her to drive us away, to get us out before they caught up. But they did catch up. The headlights that crashed into us weren't an accident. Elise said they were intentional, meant to force the car off the road. My breath caught as she described how my mother shielded me with her body, how Elise's father pulled Elise out of the car despite being injured, how the forest glowed with beams of flashlights searching for them. Your mother helped us hide, she whispered. She carried you into the trees, while my father led them away. I felt my heart clench in my chest as Elise explained that my mind shut down the memory from trauma, that the blow to my head and the shock of the night wiped the moment clean from my conscious recall, while Elise, just 11 at the time, remembered everything. But the story twisted again when she told me about the pendant. You gave it to me the next morning, she said, tears welling in her eyes. You said it would help me be brave. You promised you would never forget me. The ache in my chest deepened, because part of me wanted desperately to believe her, to believe that I had once cared for someone so deeply, but the fog in my memory refused to lift fully. Elise explained that after the crash, her father disappeared, taken or killed. She didn't know, and my mother did everything she could to protect us both. She kept Elise hidden at a safe house for months. But after my mother's health began to decline, she made one final request, that Elise stay far away from me. not because she didn't trust Elise, but because she feared the people searching for Elise's father would return for Elise and anyone connected to her. She was trying to protect you by erasing me from your life, Elise said, her voice trembling. She asked me never to contact you, but she also left me that letter to give you, if the time ever came. I asked why the time suddenly mattered now, and Elise looked down at her hands, twisting the pendant chain between her fingers. Because the people who hunted my father, they're back, she whispered, and they're looking for the only loose end they couldn't erase you. My blood ran cold. She explained that someone close to me, someone I trusted, had unknowingly been feeding information to the group for years, tracking subtle changes in my behavior, waiting for signs that the suppressed memory might resurface. They don't want you to remember what happened, Elise said, because your memory holds proof of what they did, and they're terrified you'll speak. I felt dizzy, as if the ground beneath us was cracking. All day, subtle things had felt off, seeing the same car circle my block twice, a man pretending to read a newspaper across from the cafe, the feeling of being watched. Elise noticed my expression and gently placed her hand over mine. Robin, there's more, she whispered. Your mother didn't just write the letter for you. She left something for me, too. She reached into her coat again and pulled out another envelope, this one addressed to her. I watched as she unfolded the letter with trembling hands. Tears streamed down her cheeks as she read silently, and when she finally lifted her eyes to meet mine, she said, Your mother knew we were connected in a way neither of us understood. She said you and I were the reason the tests were created in the first place. My breath hitched. Elise explained that the night before the crash, my mother had met her father, accidentally or fatefully, no one knew. They talked about their children, about the strange coincidences in their lives, how I had dreams of events that hadn't happened yet, how Elise remembered conversations before they took place, how both of us sensed emotions in ways that didn't match our age, to children whose minds didn't follow the normal rules of time. Elise's father believed we had what he called resonant memory, a rare neurological phenomenon in which two minds can imprint on each other, creating shared emotional echoes across years, even lifetimes. Your mother realized it the moment we met, Elise said. She knew we were connected. That's why she wanted to protect us. My heart pounded as Elise leaned closer. Robin, the memory you've been suppressing all these years, the thing they don't want you to remember, isn't just the crash. She took a shaky breath. It's the fact that you and I made a promise that night. Something inside me cracked like an ancient lock breaking open under its own. Strain and suddenly flashes of memory flooded me so. Quickly, I couldn't breathe. Elise crying in the forest, holding the pendant between her hands. Me wrapping my arms around her and whispering that I would protect her. My mother's voice urging us to stay quiet. The distant footsteps of men searching for us. Elise's father calling her name one last time. And then now, hands clasped together in the darkness, whispering, we won't forget. Not in any life. The memory struck me with such force that I doubled over on the bench, gasping. Elise caught my arm. Robin, are you? I remember, I choked out. Not everything, but enough. Her face softened, relief and sorrow mixing in her expression. I hoped you would, she whispered, because now we have a choice to make. She explained that the group believed I was the key to unlocking the resonant memory, link something they wanted to exploit, manipulate, control. But Elise believed something different, that the connection between us existed not because of experimentation or trauma, but because of something far simpler. A love forged in a moment of fear, cemented by a promise neither of us understood at the time. Your mother knew, Elise whispered. That's why she tried to shield us both. The streetlights flickered again, shadows shifting across the pavement. Elise looked around nervously. They're close, she murmured. I can feel it. My heart hammered in my chest. What do they want from us? Elise squeezed my hand. Not us. The truth your memory holds. The truth that could expose everything they've done. The air grew colder, the hum of the city fading beneath a heavier silence. Elise stood, pulling me with her. Robin, we can't stay here. Where do we go? She looked into my eyes, determination burning through her fear. To the only place they can't follow your past. Before I could ask what she meant, she placed the pendant back around my neck. The moment it touched my skin, the world around us shifted, not visually, not dramatically, but in a subtle way that made every nerve in my body jolt awake, as if time itself had taken a breath. Elise stepped closer, her forehead touching mine. Robin, remember who you were before they erased it, she whispered. Remember what we were. And as the night deepened around us, as footsteps echoed in the distance, as the past rose like a tide ready to reclaim me, I felt something inside me awaken fully for the first time in decades. Truth, long buried, now breaking the surface. Whatever happens next, Elise said, voice trembling but sure, you won't face it alone. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that she was right. Because some connections don't disappear when memories fade. They wait, they endure, they find their way back. And if this story stirred something in your heart, if it awakened a memory you didn't know you lost, then stay with me. Like, comment, subscribe, because none of us should walk through the past alone.